In the heart of the city, surrounded by narrow streets and weathered brick buildings, there stood a clock tower that everyone had long since stopped noticing. Its face gleamed silver in the sun, pristine and perfect, but there were no hands. No hands to mark the hours, no hands to whisper the seconds, no hands to measure the inevitable passage of life. People passed it daily, indifferent, or laughed at its futility. But for Julian, the clock tower was a silent accusation. As a boy, Julian had stood beneath it, staring upward, and imagined that the time it refused to tell belonged only to him. He had 1,000 dreams tucked in his chest, ideas scribbled in notebooks, and ambitions that shimmered brighter than sunlight. But he had also learned to wait. Someday, he told himself, someday, when the stars aligned, when he had enough courage, when the world seemed ready, he would act. Someday became a friend, a companion, a gentle lullaby that lulled him into inertia. Years passed, and the clock with no hands remained the same. Julian grew older, heavier with unspoken ideas and unlived experiences. His notebooks were filled with beginnings that never became endings, plans that gathered dust in drawers, and dreams that shrank quietly under the weight of hesitation. He walked past the tower every day, feeling the silence it carried like a rebuke. One autumn evening, the sky bruised with orange and purple, Julian lingered beneath the tower. A sudden breeze rustled the leaves, carrying with it the faint scent of damp earth and possibility. He noticed an elderly man sitting on a bench, polishing an old pocket watch. His hands trembled with age, yet he worked meticulously, winding and adjusting the gears with devotion. "You notice the clock," the old man said without looking up. "Few do. Most just pass it by, waiting." I notice it," Julian replied cautiously. "It doesn't move. Why would it?" The man smiled, finally looking at him. "It doesn't move because it has no hands. It teaches a lesson. People waste life waiting for the perfect moment. They wait for someday. But the truth is, someday never comes. The only moment we have is now." Julian's chest tightened. The words struck deeper than any reprimand he had ever received. "But what if I start and fail?" he asked. "What if I move now and it's the wrong decision?" The old man's eyes glimmered. "Then you learn, then you continue. The clock does not care about right or wrong. It only cares that you move. The hands are yours. You measure your time by action, not by waiting." That night, Julian could not sleep. He stared at the ceiling of his small apartment, imagining the clock tower and the empty sky beyond it. He realized he had been living in a suspended eternity, waiting for a sign, for courage, for a perfect alignment of circumstances. None would ever come. The clock with no hands had been waiting for him to notice, and now he had. The next morning, Julian began. He wrote a letter to a publisher he had long admired, filled with stories he had written over years, but never shared. He picked up an old paintbrush and began to paint, letting colors flow freely without judgment or expectation. He walked into the marketplace, sharing ideas with strangers, embracing the vulnerability of action. Each step was small, hesitant, yet monumental. The invisible hands of his life began to move, not dictated by calendars or deadlines, but by courage and choice. Weeks passed, and Julian felt a transformation. The weight of procrastination lifted, replaced by the exhilaration of presence. Each moment became charged with potential. He noticed people differently: a shopkeeper's smile, a child's laughter, the subtle rhythm of life in motion. He understood that the clock with no hands was not an absence of time, but a revelation of freedom, that life begins when we stop waiting. One evening, years later, Julian returned to the tower. It was the same silver face, gleaming in twilight, still without hands. Children played beneath it, lovers walked by, and tourists stopped to take pictures, none aware of its hidden wisdom. Julian pressed his hand against the smooth surface and whispered, "I understand now. You've been teaching me all this time. Life doesn't wait. The perfect time never exists. Only now exists. And now is enough. From that day forward, Julian lived fully in the present. He traveled, created, loved, and failed gloriously, embracing imperfection and uncertainty. Every choice became an act of defiance against the illusion of someday. And when he finally shared his story with others, he spoke not of the tower itself, but of the lesson it carried. Life is measured not in hours, minutes, or seconds, but in action. Waiting is an illusion. Hesitation is a thief. The moment you stand and step forward, your time begins. Even in old age, Julian walked past the clock daily. He never tried to fix it, never looked for hands. He understood that the absence of hands was the gift itself, a gift that teaches the world is not measured by waiting, but by courage. The only perfect time is now. The only hands that matter are yours, and the life you have is the one you choose to live today.